y'all already know what I gotta do. I gotta monetize the haters. Always. That's what we do. I have no idea which episode we are on when it comes to monetize your haters. But you know this recent video that I did talking about Mark Ruffalo. I called him the economically illiterate Hulk because he had some things to say about capitalism and shared an article that was, he's talking about, at least in the original tweet that he put out, saying that we need this economic revolution, capitalism bad, all this nonsense. So I get a comment that isn't unlike comments that I've got before. In fact, it's very representative of a lot of comments that I get, never in person, of course, always on the internet. But let's go through it. So the guy calls me, he says, Uncle Ruckus, hey, Uncle Ruckus, how you doing? Effing sellout. Now, for those that don't know, if you watch Boondocks, or if you don't watch Boondocks, Uncle Ruckus is a character that is, he's black, clearly, but he thinks that he's white, and he's always down talking black people. So what he's basically saying is that he's calling me a fake black person, and he's calling me a sellout. So I ask him, just to play along, who did I sell out? Sell out. He says, I don't know what's going on right here. Let me take some water. Single-use water bottle, by the way. He says, and it helped, but whatever. He says, an entire multiracial, multi-generational movement that's trying to effing stop the runaway train that is unfettered capitalism. And you use your voice to diminish it. So let's recap. Right, we got two comments here. I'm going to tell you exactly what he's saying before I read my comment. But he has called me fake black person that hates other blacks. That's what Uncle Ruckus is. And he's saying that I ask him who he sells out. He doesn't ever answer the question. All he says is that there's a multi-generational, multi-racial movement that's trying to stop, quote, unfettered capitalism, end quote. And he's saying that I use my voice to diminish it. So if he's answering the question, he's saying I'm selling out because I was supposed to be a part of this multiracial, multi-generational movement that's trying to stop unfettered capitalism. I said the problem is that capitalism isn't unfettered, because it's not. Regardless, in order to have sold out, I would have had to been on your team. And the problem is he assumed that I'm on his team because it is. We're not on the same squad, and it's silly that you assume such a thing because of my race, which is literal racism, by the way. I absolutely tend to use my voice to diminish your efforts in constant movement away from capitalism. That's the whole point. So what I'm saying here, and just to sort of reiterate, well, let's start with the capitalism, the unfettered capitalism. Like, I don't know why people use that term, because for one, capitalism is not unfettered in America. When you consider all the numerous amounts of regulations, laws, and such hoops, licensing that you have to jump through in order to even be a business, like, to call this unfettered capitalism, when you consider all of that plus more, is absolutely idiotic. I'm gonna call it what it is. It's idiotic because it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. It doesn't exist. This unfettered capitalism doesn't exist. To me, that's the problem. But racism is basically thinking that race is the primary determinant of a set of attributes, traits, and such. He's literally done that. And this is why I've done videos on this topic, in that people assume, for better or for worse, that you are supposed to have some sort of political or social alignment due to your race, gender, things that had nothing to do with what it is that you were born with. Let's say that. So it's not even in your control. But I'm not even rejecting maybe the idea that there are certain demographics that may tend to adopt certain economic systems as opposed to others, for various amounts of different reasons. But that's a lot more than what this guy is doing, because he's saying that I'm supposed to do this. Like it's not even talking about trends at this point. He's saying, yo, you are supposed to think this way because you're black, and therefore you have sold out. Like, who said that I was supposed to adopt this position? And he says, well, you didn't address the substance of my comment. Now, imagine thinking there's some substance in calling somebody Uncle Ruckus and then saying this a bunch of nonsense about unfettered capitalism, which doesn't exist. It is very much unfettered in America, with 30,000 dying a year. First of all, all right, so I got to find the script. This is why we like to call these guys non-playable characters, because the guy that I debated on this channel said that exact same thing. So there must be something out there that's floating around peddling some sort of thing that, okay, 30,000 people die because they don't have free health care, right? Prescription drug prices insanely high, which is due to regulatory laws, which actually stomp out competition. Even if people want to come up with alternatives, it's illegal for them to do so. Hold on, where am I at? And Gen Pop getting about 5% of what they want. I don't know what that means. You have an effing oligarchy in the U.S. Okay, I don't know what that has to do with capitalism. You're damn right we ain't on the same team. Well, why did you say I sold out? I don't assume ish because of your race. I just find it ludicrous that you find yourself with repubs to begin with. Have you taken any history class? Why do you work away from your and indeed your fellow working class Americans, interests? Fascinating, right? So here we go. Because I am an advocate of capitalism, I'm a Republican according to him. Complete nonsense. If you see my videos, I've talked about this a lot. I have never voted for a Republican in my life. I don't even vote now. I'm an anarchist. You know that. Again, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and I have no interest in using the political system to get out my, I guess, what it is that I'm an advocate of. I don't think that's, now I don't, if people want to be involved in that, that's their business. There's a lot of people that want to use the political system to bring about some sort of change. Me personally, that's not my battle. I like to attack it from a cultural side, because I know that politics is a lagging indicator of culture. You change the culture to politics, change by default. So this is why you find myself among the circles that I'm in terms of music, comic books and stuff like that, because to me that battle is more one in building some relationships and using my platform to be able to educate people in that matter, not wasting my time going out there to punch a button. Now people argue that I can do both. I feel like I'm better off jumping off the second story of my window. Second story of my window, that doesn't make sense. Jumping out the window on the second story of my home and breaking my legs, as opposed to voting. Be a little more productive if I did that. But he's assuming and he's equating against, this economic revolution that tries to overthrow the capitalism or whatever means Republican. It's funny because I just did a video talking about how Republicans are advocates of socialism, and they praise socialism when it's sort of put forth by way of somebody with an R next to their name. I just did a video. Matter of fact, just so we're not like, talking around things, let me see if I could find this. Because it's important. Like, this guy is saying this after I just done a video on this. I just did a video on this. Right here, when I was talking about Charlie Kirk and Company. Well, Republicans advocate socialistic policies that, what is the full title?
Isn't it amazing?
That Democrats have long pushed for. So I was talking about in this whole entire video about how I'm obviously not going to be on these guys' team, but I'm explaining why, because you got guys out here that are Republicans advocating for socialism. They just are a little late on it. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But that's where we're at, dudes. Like, these people assume that because of my particular color, I'm supposed to be like I'm bound to this political philosophy. And he's like, what did he say? Have you taken in history class? Why do you work away from your indeed fellow working class Americans' interests? Like, so what he's saying is, and people say this all the time, it's like if you don't vote for a Democrat, they're like you're voting against your own self-interest. They say this stuff all the time. So it's like, okay, you have interests that aren't mine, and I have the right position. And by I'm meaning that's what they believe, that they have the right position. And if you don't support that, well, you have the wrong position, and you're sort of working against your own personal interest. And it's like the reason why I'm an advocate of capitalism. I'm gonna really hammer this home here. I'm a libertarian. It's not a secret. I'm an advocate of that, and capitalism ensures the most peaceful way to allocate resources, believe it or not. And for those that don't know what capitalism is, even though they consistently redefine it as something that it is not, anyway, I saw a message on my tab on a different tab you guys can't see here. Anyway, but capitalism is the private ownership of goods and services and the free and voluntary exchange of private goods and services. I don't care what the etymology is. I don't care what Marx said that it was. I don't care what the political pundits, I don't care what the people that are against capitalism say that it is. They say that it's equals profit and stuff like that. It is completely false. It has nothing to do with profit. You can do something for profit and then be under the it can be capitalism. You can do something that isn't for profit, such as giving your money away, trading goods and such, and it'll still be under capitalism. This is why Thomas Sowell said that it isn't an ism at all. No matter if you go to a prominent Austrian Chicago economist, they're going to generally define it as what I just did. And that's the only reason, that's the only thing to go off of. You need to go off of the definition as far as the people that are defining it, or that are advocates for it define. Otherwise, you're talking right past each other. You're operating from this definition. They're operating from this definition. And now you're arguing semantics because you can't even agree on what the damn term means. Capitalism is the private ownership of goods and services and the free and voluntary exchange of private goods and services. In America, you do not have unfettered capitalism. It does not exist when you consider all the heavy amounts of regulatory law from the federal level on down to the state and local level. It is ridiculous. It is for anybody that does not start businesses, they wouldn't know this. If you try to start a business, if you try to enter in any sort of certain particular marketplaces, you got to go jump all through these hoops, licensing fees and such, just to even be approved. And by approved, I mean in order for the state to not send their goons after you if you indeed try to practice something, no matter how safe or no matter how voluntary that act is. To say that we have unfettered capitalism in America is a complete lie. And to blame the healthcare, medicine system and such, which is one of the highly regulated systems in the country, and to be like, well, look at that. And they never come up with these alternatives, right? They say 30,000 people die. And I guess their supposed alternative, if anything, is, well, it should be free. And they never consider that people still die, right? People still die, even if it's you have the state actually robbing people to pay for your services, your healthcare services. And it also completely, and it's this whole nonsensical equality approach, and because it assumes that everybody acts the same way. Healthcare, when it comes to health, actually legitimate health care, it starts in the kitchen. It starts with taking care of your body. It starts with some with those types of deal. Not everybody has all of these diseases that they were born with and could have prevented. And this is the problem with something like universal health care, because it doesn't even take that into consideration. Me, somebody that takes care of my body, that rarely ever goes to the doctor, versus somebody or versus somebody else who eats whatever, and they have to constantly go to the doctor to take care of themselves because they're overweight, they get sick, they get sicknesses, their nutrition's very bad and so forth, but they want me to pay for him. That's the problem with it. And that's the thing that people don't ever consider. It's like, well, person's sick, therefore your bad ideas and your bad choices should be subsidized, which is crazy. And the thing about capitalism that's a beautiful thing is that capitalism does not prevent any of those people from doing what it is that they want. If you want to pull your resources together to pay for you to have a pool where everybody just reaches into that pool as long as you paid in for it, or if you didn't pay for it, y'all can reach into that pool and you can have your healthcare services paid for. There's nothing under free if capital. I don't want you to be taxed for that reason. So you can keep as much of your money as you can, so you can put it to whatever it is that you want to put it to. There's nothing under capitalism that stops you. This is why we say that the capitalist would allow the socialist to be a socialist, but the socialist will not allow the capitalist to be a capitalist. Because under capitalism, if you want to practice, if your idea of socialism is people pulling up their resources to help each other, which isn't historically what socialism has ever been, but if that's the definition that you want to run with, you can do that under capitalism voluntarily. You just can't force people to be a part of that. And that's what I wish the state socialists would just come out and say, instead of acting like capitalism is bad and trying to play these sort of semantic tactics and all of this stuff and such. I wish they would just come out and say, look, I want you to fund my whimsical ideas, and I will send state goons to do it and confiscate your private property to make sure that this gets done, to make sure that this gets done. That's all I want y'all to say. We'd be having a more honest conversation if you just came out and said that. Don't tell me, oh, it's about the poor and I can't. No. Oh, because nothing stops you under capitalism from doing that. The only thing is you can't force me to be, a part of your system, which I think is going to be an absolute failure. I want to donate money to who I want to donate money to. I want to take care of my family. I want to prioritize that. And if you don't, that is absolutely 100% within your right to do that. But you don't have a right to force everybody else to participate in that with their private property. You don't have the right to do that. Use your own private property. Use your own property to pull your resources together with other people that want to have their own property, be it in money or what have you. And y'all can help subsidize the poor and and such. And meanwhile, guys like myself will do it in the ways that we want to do it. Capitalism does not mean not helping the poor. It's private ownership of goods and services and the free and voluntary exchange of private goods and services. You can do that. You can help poor. You cannot help poor. You can give your money away. You cannot give your money away. You can create, you have your private goods. You maybe make something out of it. You can give that away, or you can sell it, or you can keep it. It's 100% up to you as long as that's your private property. But you do not have a right to force everybody else to participate in it. And for you to think that there's something wrong with me because I'm black and I'm an advocate of this system. I'm an advocate of free and voluntary exchange. I don't want to go around forcing people to do stuff. As a black person, I mean, you think it, if you're going to play that card, considering the history of black people in this country, they should be the main advocates of stuff like libertarianism. I know a lot of people say slavery is capitalism because they look at selling people as again, that just goes to show that they operate from a definition of capitalism that nobody's an actual advocate for. Because anybody that's an advocate of capitalism will absolutely say without a doubt that slavery is antithetical to capitalism because of the forceful use of one person to serve the purposes of another. You are violating that person's private property right and self-ownership by selling them. You can't do it. Capitalism is not selling and buying. That's not simply what it is. But if you're on level one, that's exactly what it is. You just repeat the lies of what Democrats and other mainstream leftists are advocates of. Yeah, of course, that's exactly how you define it. You define it in a way that absolutely nobody's an advocate of. But you are an advocate of forcing people to fund your whimsical ideas. Believe it or not, there are plenty of black people that are against socialism.